Good morning, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning, Kayla.
Good morning, Sarah.
It must be Wednesday. So here we are for our Be Well Live. For those of you who are with us for the first time, Kayla and I are part of the healing department at Family Service of Rhode Island. And we come together every Wednesday at 10 as part of our Be Well information series to talk about a bunch of different topics related to how we are all coping with the COVID-19 crisis. Also, for those of you who don't know, Family Service of Rhode Island is a social service agency, and we've been serving Rhode Islanders for over 125 years, and we offer a large variety of services, including telehealth counseling. And you hear us say this every week, but now more than ever, it is so important for all of us to focus on our mental health just as much as we are all focusing on our physical health. And we at Family Service are here to help.
And we'll be joining together, as Sarah said, today and every Wednesday at 10 a.m. to discuss and kind of look at supporting wellness during COVID-19. So we ask you, just like we do every week, to take a moment to share this on your Facebook page, share it with friends, start a watch party, and help us reach as many as we can with this information about being well during the COVID-19 crisis. So please, 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 now more than ever, it's so important that we are staying connected, even if we have to be distant from one another, and helping each other to get the assistance we need, especially if people we know are struggling or you yourself is struggling. COVID-19 has put such a significant amount of stress on individuals, on families, on our community as a whole in Rhode Island, and that impacts not only our physical health, but as Sarah said, it also impacts our mental health. And I think Sarah is going to share with us what we're talking about today.
Sure. So we've talked about so many important topics here week to week. We most recently talked about kind of reentry, and Rhode Island is moving or has moved into phase 3. So I think people are feeling more hopeful and engaged and excited about what's coming in the future. And news that Rhode Island, our cases of COVID-19 are going down. Those are all wonderful, positive things. But there are still individuals and families and people out there who I think are struggling with the impact of this crisis. So today we're going to talk about some concrete information related to resources that are available here in Rhode Island. In the midst of this crisis, so many agencies and businesses have stepped up to support Rhode Islanders who have been grappling with both the health risks and health impacts physically of COVID-19, but also the economic impact, which has resulted in so many of people here in Rhode Island and across the nation who are struggling to make ends meet. So now more than ever, we really need, just as you were saying, Kayla, to come together as a community and to support each other.
Yeah. And today we hope that we'll share resources that may directly help you, a loved one, or a neighbor. And again, it goes back to that idea. We might have to be socially distant, but this is the time to really come together to be checking on our friends, to be checking on our neighbors, to be checking on our loved ones. And it's that time to really be sharing the wealth in terms of resources that are available, because we know they're limited, and we know that there's so many people that need that help. So we hope this conversation today encourages those who maybe haven't before to reach out for concrete help. And we know, Sarah and I talked about, and we had someone on a few weeks ago to talk about the stigma of accessing mental health treatment. We also know that there is a stigma to accessing basic needs and supports and asking for help. And our hope is that today, by giving some information about what is out there, we can help people that are maybe at the point that they need that help, but are feeling really overwhelmed when there are so many stressors. We can really have a difficult time knowing where to go or how to access support, or even where to start. And our hope is today that we can have some of those conversations.
Kayla, it's been really inspirational to see the community coming together everywhere, but mostly, here in Rhode Island. I think because of our geographic size, we can really make an impact statewide when we kind of set out to do so. So one of the programs that we're going to highlight happens to be a program of Family Service of Rhode Island, but it started when COVID-19 began to impact our community. And it's called Be Safe Rhode Island. You can see a trend with our naming here. So we're excited to have Diane Shemtov from Family Service of Rhode Island, who is really one of the people who has spearheaded this Be Safe program. She is our guest today to share the story of how this program came to be and to let you all know how you can access help. Welcome, Diane. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So Diane, can you share a little with us about what the Be Safe program is and how it came to be what it is today?
Okay, sure. Well, Be Safe is a program that actually started from a discussion between Maggie Slane, who you know is our Vice President of Development, and Margaret Holland McDuff, our CEO. They were just talking about how hard it was to get necessary supplies and started talking about how hard it was going to be for many of our FSRI clients to purchase the things that were being recommended to help keep them safe for COVID-19. Things like hand and laundry soaps, gloves, tissues, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, just cleaning supplies that, you know, I remember the first time I went to the store, I was late as always and catching on to this, right? And I went and I came out with like might have been 4 items, $40. $40. And it was things I'd never bought before because Lysol wipes were gone. This was some no-name brand. And I'm like, they knew that many of our clients, this was going to be a huge struggle for. So they came up with the idea of raising some money and that Family Service would purchase contents and do about 200 Be Safe kits containing about $25 each of COVID supplies, right? And their plan was that our staffs who were out working in the schools, working in the homes, would actually be able to deliver these kits to their clients when they were out providing services. So we began an online campaign to raise the funds. Almost immediately, 3 major changes happened when Rhode Island declared a statewide emergency, closed schools, and it was very quickly no longer considered safe to be providing direct in-person services. So within like a 48-hour period, and you guys I know this, Family Service changed our whole business model. We moved to video, telehealth, and that meant, and our staff were working remotely from home. They were all on Google Duo and telephone contact, and we were still providing services, but not in person. So that meant that we needed another way to get these kits out. Meanwhile, the donations had come in very generously, and the governor also at the time asked us to please expand this work statewide, not limit it to 200 Family Service clients. And lastly, as soon as we started doing this and the requests were coming in very, very quickly, people were asking, can you help us with food? We're having trouble. We need food. We started looking for what were the food pantries that we could refer people to. And of course, what we found was they've been hit by the COVID-19 and the shutdown also. Their operations were center-based with people coming in, volunteers coming in, working closely together, were no longer safe and not okay. So many of the food resources that had been available in the community were not there anymore. We knew that would be hopefully temporary, but that was the reality that many, many families in Rhode Island were facing. So we were lucky because some of these changes provided us opportunities. With the schools closed, our AmeriCorps AIM program, the members that we had there had extra time because checking in with their students and families by phone, text, and Google Duo didn't take their full days like being on site in the schools had. So, and our members were eager to help. They wanted to help. They loved the idea of getting out supplies. They loved the idea of, as we added food, being able to get really needed things out to people in the community. So they did things like packed food. They got donations for us. They unloaded and loaded up the vans and unloaded the trucks from the food bank. And they very quickly became like the core of our Be Safe team. And that was under, the supervision and direction of Joyce Levin, who, as you know, was our project manager for AmeriCorps and has now become our project director for our Be Safe efforts. All of this to say that, without the AmeriCorps members, we wouldn't have been able to get this business started. And, they even went and delivered driving around. They did our early deliveries in March, pretty much with just the 10 of them. And they went in pairs driving around the whole state on routes that had been mapped out, doing these safe, no contact deliveries, just using phone, text, and waving at folks from the distance as they dropped things off. And basically, with lots of help from our development team, we built a program almost overnight that enabled us to take requests from any Rhode Islander using a dedicated phone line and an online request form. Our Be Safe team delivered bags of non-perishable food, thanks to our wonderful partnership with the Rhode Island Food Bank, along with whatever supplies we'd been able to get, right? So unfortunately, at that time, supplies varied greatly week to week because it was very difficult to find things like soap, toilet paper, masks, and impossible to find sanitizing wipes, not in the volume that we needed.
Right.
And it was also not safe to go out to stores, right? So, there were some stores that you could go in and buy one or two of something when they had it, but we were getting requests at the volume of 100 a day.
Wow.
So there was no way we could use regular stores. We needed suppliers. And as that demand skyrocketed, our team of, AmeriCorps volunteers needed help. And we actually enlisted staff from across the whole agency, especially helping us with the deliveries. We found suppliers for most of what we needed, except for those darn Lysol wipes. They're still eluding us, guys.
I know.
It's so hard. And finally, we have a steady stream of supplies flowing in and out on a regular basis.
This is such an inspirational story, Diane. It really is so amazing how kind of a need was identified and so quickly you and your team just sprang into action to meet that need. It really is one of the many stories out there about such great community response. So I love asking you this question because it goes up every day, but how many Rhode Islanders have you served through Be Safe? And do you see the need continuing?
Okay. Well, first, before I answer that, I do want to point out that it has definitely not been just a my team effort.
Yeah.
And this has been an effort throughout, not just family service, but really throughout the community. And
Awesome.
Hopefully I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to stress that because there's no way that our team alone could have done this work.
Yeah.
As of yesterday, we had delivered Be Safe kits to 5,123 homes across Rhode Island.
Wow.
A total of 13,491 people have benefited so far.
That is so amazing.
In April, the requests, in April alone, the requests averaged 170 per day. And we had a few days where the requests were over 300.
Wow. And
although at one point during that time we were delivering, we'd gotten up to delivering about 500 kits per week. We still couldn't keep up with that kind of volume, and it was really tough. Luckily, the volume of requests slowed a little bit in May. There were a lot of other food programs and assistance that became available both through the state and programs like the EBT cards and things, as well as food pantries were once again up and operating. They made a shift over. They were operating differently, but many more of them were operating. So in May, we were averaging about 70 requests a day, and that let us get caught up on the backlog. And now in June, we've been averaging about 250 deliveries per week. But although the volume has slowed, Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
we're continuing to get requests, many of them urgent.
Yeah.
As families, they're still struggling with food insecurity, which we know impacts way too many Rhode Islanders before COVID.
Yeah.
And the reality is that since COVID, families who were never food insecure before have become food insecure. Some of that is because they're isolating. Some of that is because they've lost jobs. There's a lot of reasons behind it, but the end result is that more families in Rhode Island need this kind of help. Many of our partners in the community tell us that they're expecting a significant increase in need during July and beyond, because some of these extra food assistance programming that was available either has ended or will be ending. And of course, most people are predicting that this COVID-19 risks are going to continue throughout the summer and likely into the fall.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I do see the need continuing, and I would like us to be ready and able to meet the increasing demand if and more likely when it does happen.
And Diane, I think just hearing those numbers, the amount of calls you were getting from families per day, even now 70, having 70 come in per day, it just speaks to the need in Rhode Island, right? And those are people that are reaching out. We know that there are people that are really struggling, that don't know where to start, that don't know how to kind of engage in these programs, or that there's a stigma, right? There's a stigma to reaching out and asking for help. And yet, just like you said, we know that there is a lot going on, and that will continue to go on in terms of access to different programs and programming, access to financial support, access to emergency food support, that will likely kind of shift and change as we go through the summer. So I'm so glad we're able to hear about this program. So I think, my next question for you would be, we know it's been so successful, and we actually know, Sarah and I get to hear all about this being in family service, that you've expanded, we've been able to expand this Be Safe program to something called Be Safe Plus, that specifically targets seniors that are in need. Can you tell us about that next program and what you were seeing in Be Safe that kind of led to creating Be Safe Plus?
Sure. So first, Be Safe Plus is a program that is funded by the Office of Healthy Aging. Family Service was asked to partner with OHA and the United Way's The Point program. We are working with two other vendors as well, Rocks and Chubby Chickpea, along with their partner in Rhode Island, Hope and Maine, to get Be Safe Plus boxes of food, including some fresh foods and COVID-19 supplies, like we do with Be Safe, out to seniors and other vulnerable individuals living across Rhode Island. Many of these individuals are isolating for health and safety reasons related to COVID-19. So we've only started this recently, and the referrals are now beginning to ramp up. Our plan is to be able to deliver an average of 500 Be Safe Plus boxes per week once the word spreads.
Wow.
And what we saw with Be Safe was the issue of folks who were in need because it was not safe for them to go. Folks, this kind of started in the beginning, the food Providence schools, which is the schools that we had our AIM program in, that's the district. We knew that immediately they set up sites that that the kids could come and get meals. They were trying to address what they knew was going to be a food need once the school buildings were closed. But we heard from so many families that because of different, health status and situations of members in their household, that nobody felt safe going.
Right.
And we knew that there was a real need to deliver. And now when you're looking at the elderly population, they're the most at risk. And they often live in, in housing environments that make it even more difficult if they have mobility issues, if they're living alone. How do they get out? Even now that food pantries are open, how do they get out and safely to a store and back again?
Yeah. So, Diane, if people want to know more or want to access resources from Be Safe or Be Safe Plus, what's the best way for them to do that? I know, what's the best way? Should they visit
Okay,
our website? Yeah, go ahead.
well, requests for the Be Safe Plus should be made by contacting United Way's 211, the
Okay,
point system, and asking for Be Safe Plus. There
got it.
is eligibility criteria because this is a program that's funded to serve primarily seniors aged 60 and above, but
Okay,
others are also eligible. And the point staff are very familiar with all the eligibility criteria, and that is the best way for people to find out if they're eligible or not. If they are eligible, the point just automatically forwards that referral information to our Be Safe Plus team, and that team will reach out by phone to make arrangements directly with the recipient for delivery. Now, if someone is not eligible for Be Safe Plus, they can always go to FSRI's website to our
okay,
Be Safe request page and complete a simple online request form. We have it available in English and Spanish. If they scroll down to the bottom of that page, they see English and Spanish right on it. Or they can always call our Be Safe program at 401-519-2283. Folks can leave a message with their name and contact number, and our Be Safe staff will call them back the next business day to get them signed up for a delivery.
And we'll make sure to have that information posted in the comments area. And I know Will is putting our amazing producer that you all never get to see has put the information also at the bottom of the screen for how to access the point. But it sounds like, Diane, you could also just remember the 3 numbers 211 and
Yeah,
you can call 211 and they will get you to where you need to be.
absolutely. Yep, they're a great partner.
So this has been such an impressive and huge endeavor. I mean, going from we're going to try to get enough kits for 200 people to serving, more than 200 people a day or a week. I mean, those are things that are just it speaks to that need, right? And it speaks to the way that you've been able to and many agencies across Rhode Island have come together collaboratively to really kind of meet the needs that are coming up and foresee the needs right before they become needs, so that we're really able to kind of have people access it right away when they're calling. So how have you been able to fund that program, and where have you received support or assistance in kind of partnerships in the community to keep this going?
Okay. Well, first, the Be Safe Plus program is funded from that grant from Office of Healthy Aging to the United Way and from them to us. So that's great. And but still helping us with that is we have our vendors, but we also have the whole senior service network across the state of Rhode Island that are helping us get the word out and actually reach out to folks who are pretty isolated. So that's great to have their help. For Be Safe itself, which is a fully covered by donations program. Thank goodness, but we've had a ton of support from Rhode Island businesses and individual Rhode Islanders with donations of money, food, and supplies. To date, I believe that over 1,000 individual Rhode Islanders donated by texting Be Safe to 44321. And we've received help from over 20 businesses. And that help has included donating bags. Several of them donated company vehicles and employees to help us do deliveries that let them keep their employees working and doing really worthwhile, helpful work to the community. But it was great. It really, without their help, we couldn't do what we were doing. A lot of the companies, have donated money and support that way. Many of them have donated supplies. When we started getting the requests for food, we immediately turned to the Rhode Island Food Bank, and they generously agreed to give us weekly deliveries of pallets full of shelf-stable foods that we could give to those in need. Without the help of these businesses and the individuals also who donated, and many of our FSRI staff and AmeriCorps members that were volunteering their time to help on a regular basis, we couldn't have done this work.
And Diane, I just want to reiterate 44321, right? If you text 44321, and I feel like we talk about it all the time, so I feel like I know that number by heart now. And you text "be safe." I mean, so many people have contacted Sarah and I, or I've heard from other people that I know that are saying, like, how do I help, right? How do I help my community? And if you are, privileged enough to have some extra resources right now, or how to make masks, or you have access to something that might be helpful for community members, you can text 44321 and get connected, and be able to kind of support this initiative and be part of our growing partnership, because it's all grassroots, it's all donations that are funding this program.
Absolutely. And donations as little as $5 or $10, as well as I heard that some people donated their stimulus checks.
Wow.
To our program.
Amazing.
I mean, the outpouring of support from Rhode Island has been amazing.
And it sounds like, Diane, if there are businesses out there listening or that can help with tangible goods or items, we are still open to that help and support as well.
Sure. And we have several groups around the state that have made cloth masks and donated them. We've had a number of businesses that donated, small or large hand sanitizers. That has been so helpful. We've also begun working with several of the congregations and faith communities, and they're doing giving trees or supply drives for us. We are currently looking for a few volunteers who might be willing to help us with some of the deliveries to the homebound seniors or the difficult to deliver to. Background checks and clearances, of course, are required, but anybody interested in helping in that way can reach out through our agency website under volunteers, or by contacting our human resource department. I hope folks understand we are limiting the number of volunteers involved on site in this project, because we're trying our best to limit COVID-19 exposure risks for our small core on-site team, because they're the ones that make this program work every day. I don't know what I'd do if they have to go into quarantine and can't come in.
Well, and I just have to say, I did get out to do some Be Safe deliveries, which was a welcome change to just staying at home in front of a screen. And I was so impressed with that it was a no contact pickup when I picked up the donations, and it is also no contact drop offs. So the delivery volunteer, I just have to say, it is a great way to kind of contribute and get out there if you're able to help in a way that I felt very safe doing. So thanks for letting me do that,
Sarah.
Diane. Yeah.
And we know, Diane, we also get to be privy to hearing, responses from people. And we know that people that have received them, I don't know if you want to share, but we know that people that have received them really, really appreciate them.
Oh, they absolutely do. I mean, and that's one of the things that our AmeriCorps members that call and schedule, and then we call and check in after to make sure they got things. And then, they hear all the time the thank yous and how life, in some instances, I mean, people cry on the phone, have cried just so thankful that somebody out there cares and helped them. So it's very rewarding work.
Diane, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and for talking to us about this program. And we're so happy to be able to share this. And we're actually going to share a few other resources after, but we really want to make sure that people know how to access the things that they need, right? Our basic needs, our housing, our food, those access to clean water, access to safe communities. We know that makes a huge difference in our lifelong mental health. And it really, if we can begin to look at that as, a community in Rhode Island and try to serve as many people and try to get access to those things so that no one is housing insecure, no one is food insecure, we know that will make a huge difference intergenerationally in how people are experiencing the world, how people are, experiencing their social and physical and emotional health.
Yep.
So thank you.
Absolutely, Kayla. And just the whole opportunity and the idea of neighbors helping neighbors and the community coming together is also benefiting everyone, not just those that
Absolutely.
receive something tangible, but it's really a great benefit for those that are privileged enough to be able to be doing some of that work.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Thank you, Diane.
yeah, it's amazing to see little Rhody come together. So thank you, Diane, for sharing this mission in this program.
And thanks
All right.
to your
Well,
whole
thank you
team.
again for having me.
Yeah, and thanks to your team. You're so right, Sarah.
Yes.
It takes a village. So thank you to everyone.
Yep. I will pass that on.
All right.
That was so helpful to hear from Diane. It is such a great program.
Yes, it is. And it's inspiring, right? I think, we hear about the really difficult and challenging things that are going on with COVID-19, and we know there are so many of them, and we know it's disproportionately impacting our communities of color, our minority communities, right? People that were maybe already experiencing some of this insecurity are then even more at risk of experiencing it further. And so the ways that we come together as Rhode Island to help those, that are hurting the most, right? That builds resilience for our whole community.
For sure. So we spent most of our time talking about Be Safe and Be Safe Plus, but we did want to highlight some other resources for you all just to be aware of, because there are lots of great agencies and entities doing a lot of great work out there for Rhode Islanders.
Yes. So one of the biggest resources, and I know we already talked about 211, but is Rhode Island's 211 system. So it's an information and referral line, and it's been around for a really long time. They are, the people that run it, 211 and all of their, or the United Way and all of their volunteers and the people that work for them are amazing. They are just a wealth of knowledge about anything that you're really struggling with. They have information on childcare, on food resources, on housing, and just so much more. If you have issues with accessing dental care, you can call 211. If you're having issues with navigating different systems, or if you've lost a loved one to COVID-19, they can be there to support and help with that. So during the COVID-19 crisis, the 211 staff have assisted Rhode Islanders in completing unemployment and benefit applications, accessing basic needs, and getting connected with community supports. And they are just such a great resource, and it's so easy to remember. It's 3 numbers, 211, and then you get connected with all of these different resources that really help with whatever you're really struggling with.
Another thing that people have been struggling with, Kayla, prior to COVID-19, but also especially during this crisis, is people who are housing insecure, or people who are maybe now having difficulty paying their rent. So the state has set up a Housing Help RI, which is housinghelpri.com, which is really a statewide effort to assist Rhode Islanders who are experiencing housing insecurity. And this program specifically provides emergency housing assistance to low-income renters who have been impacted by COVID-19 and who are at risk for homelessness. So that's really important to note. And also, we mentioned and highlighted food insecurity with the Be Safe Plus program, which is there to help any Rhode Islander. But also, as Diane had mentioned, our great partners at the Rhode Island Community Food Bank are also here to help you get connected to a food bank site near you that can help if you are struggling with food insecurity. We'll be posting some additional resources about this on our page. And it's also important to note, Diane mentioned this too, that the Rhode Island Department of Education is also offering free summer meals for school-age children statewide. And guess who you can call to get connected?
211?
Yes, you're right. 211. So there's a lot of resources out there if you're having trouble putting food on the table right now.
And I know, and this might change as we're doing kind of moving to summer meals, but, Rhode Island Department of Education at the beginning got a lot of information from families saying, like, I can't get to the food site, like Diane was saying, or, I have to get on a bus with my kids and I know they're going to touch things and I just don't feel safe doing that. And in many different communities, they figured out ways to respond and get people the food that they needed. So if you are having an issue getting to your site, the closest site to your home, there are likely resources that can help with getting those meals from the site to you. And there's been a lot of volunteers in different communities doing that. So don't hesitate to call or to call your school department and say, I really need access to these meals, but I just can't get to the site, because we know that people are helping to respond to that as well. And if Sarah and I went through one of these without talking about mental health and the importance of taking care of our mental health, we'd miss. So, we talk a lot about FSRI's programs that we're offering telehealth services for children, individuals, and families, that we know that our mental health is just as important as our physical health. And this COVID-19 crisis is a mental health issue just as much as it's a physical health issue. But we also want to highlight some other resources. If you are having a behavioral health emergency or a crisis or a mental health crisis, there are resources for you that are available right away. So we have Kids Link, which is a 24-hour hotline for children who are experiencing mental health emergencies. It's free, it's confidential. We'll put the information into a resource guide that we share later after this. So that's for children 18 and below. We also have BH Link, which is Rhode Island's adult, service program for adults that are having emergency behavioral or mental health crises. And that's for anyone over the age of 18. Now, this is there for you, even if you don't have insurance. If your child doesn't have insurance, if you don't have insurance, there's still things that we can do. There's still communities that agencies that will be able to help and serve you. So just because you don't have insurance doesn't mean don't call these numbers.
And lastly, well, we could go on all day about resources out there, but we only have so much time. Lastly, we just want to remind people that the Rhode Island Department of Health is a wealth of information related to COVID-19, health.ri.gov. It really is a great resource for if you're wondering, screening for symptoms, accessing information about quarantine and isolation, and you can also connect to general information and guidance about the phased reopening of our state. And as you know, every day our governor does do a press conference, and the Rhode Island Department of Health is part of that. And that is also a really great way to access up-to-date information, not only about the state of what's happening, but just about new resources that might be being highlighted.
Yeah. And just like the Department of Health has a bunch of information, so does the governor's website of different resources that have really come out of this COVID-19 crisis. So we know that there's so many things that we might not have had access to before that we do now. So that's also a great place to access resources. So we hope this has been informative and helpful. If you are struggling to think about where to go, if you are struggling with thinking about how you take the next steps, if it feels like things are too overwhelming, don't hesitate also to give us a call. We have, people that can help, but we have triage and crisis counselors that are available to help you. We have our Be Safe kits that are available for people who are in need of those basic needs. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help when you need it, or reach out to a family member, a loved one, a neighbor, if you feel like they're in need. We have to cope with this together.
Yes. And please join us next week for another hopefully helpful topic to help support us all as a community during COVID-19. And if you have a particular topic that you would like us to discuss, please feel free to leave us a comment in the chat box or send us a message. Thank you all. Be well and be safe.
Thank you.
Bye.